Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari here in the Greater Kruger National Park of South Africa. It's marvellous to have you with us. It's Sunday morning. It has dawned, well, not quite bright, a little bit partly cloudy, 19 degrees Celsius, odd 69 degrees Fahrenheit here. My name is James Henry. That is my best Sunday morning smile. And on camera today, the great leopard tracker himself, Wiem Dorenbraak. Good. We are, in fact, already on the tracks of a leopard. Before I tell you about that, what we are going to do today is try and find this leopard. Stephen Bergen-Bagen is on foot today. He is walking with David, who was late out of bed. So I would like you to castigate him quite thoroughly when you see him. And then we will be joined by the Masai Mara at some stage, all things allowing and all technical gremlins being absent on this Sunday. There's something else I need to tell you. Oh yes, please keep talking to us using the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Otherwise, you can use the chat stream on YouTube. It would be marvellous to have your questions and comments throughout the course of this Sunday morning safari. Right, shall we go and find the leopard? Yes, I think we should. We have got tracks here of what looks like a young male, which is unsurprising. Thamba was around here yesterday. The Rock. Strange name for a leopard who looks like the class nerd, but that's okay. He went down this road and we've just lost where his tracks have gone now, so I'm going to do a 90-degree spin and then we'll see if we can't figure out where they've gone. Not 90 degrees, it's 180 degrees, isn't it? Also joining us today, of course, we have Ronald the Rover. There he is. He did not, like David, get out of bed late. He has been up for some time, eagerly awaiting new experiences here in the wilderness. Now, the great tracker Wiem Dorenbraak, if I could prevail upon you to just look out the side of the car there and check that the tracks do not disappear into the bushes. You cannot see them, can you? He says no, he sees nothing. Well, I don't see them here either. So what we're going to do, I suspect they've gone up towards Djuma Dam. So what we'll do is we'll pop along there and see what we can find. Thamba, for those of you who do not know, is a male leopard about 20 months now? Yes, about 20 months old, 19 months old. Thank you very much for your kind good mornings, greetings that you've given to both of us and all of each other, of course. All right, I believe that Stephen Bergen is in fact out already, and he's now ready to say hello.
Hello indeed. Good morning, good people. How are we doing this wonderful morning? Welcome once again to Djuma in the Sabi Sands, South Africa. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined by Davy on camera. And we have Herbie, our trusty number 3, who is assisting us with safety this morning. We have decided to come out, and I have got a wonderful tree in store for you this morning. Other than that, we're going to be looking for the little signs, the tracks, the sounds, and all those beautiful little creatures that we just miss all the time when we're driving. So please feel free to send your questions and comments through on the hashtag @SafariLive, or follow us on the YouTube channel. And please send that through. We'd love to interact and to chat with you this morning. The weather is absolutely sensational. We have got a 19 degrees Celsius, 66 degrees Fahrenheit. It is perfect conditions for walking in the bush. I have, with Herbie's assistance, found a wonderful track. It is just here in the road, so we're just going to go back to it quickly and have a look. It is a track of an animal I spotted yesterday, and it's one you don't often see, and especially not on foot. We have a very distinctive little marking over here, if you can see that, and then very distinctive little feet. Oh, and there goes my book. Apologies. If we look down over here, this is the body of an animal that was sitting on the ground and basically just rolling. You can see little bits of scuff marks of hairs in there, and then the classic 2 feet, 2 feet. 2 feet in the front, 2 feet at the back. And let me just show you, when this animal is moving, it performs in a certain sort of 7 shape. That is the shape that you see when they move. You can kind of see it there, but here it's got the last foot because it was actually sitting still. So let me quickly find it for you in here. I wonder if any of you out there can quickly comment and tell me what you think this might be before I find it in my book. It is one of those sort of nocturnal animals that we don't see too much. Apologies, it's under a different name. There we go. Page 46 in my trusty book. Oh, Mrs. Grumpy, you are not far off. You are not far off indeed. It is not a rabbit. In fact, it is a scrub hare, but we don't get rabbits here. But you can see when I spoke about that characteristic sort of 7 and then the other foot, because when it runs, it hits 1 foot and it lands with 3, and then 1 and then 3. So there's a classic 7 shape, which we could clearly see in the track there, and the size 4 centimeters or so. Perfect. It is a wonderful sighting to see. The rabbit, I don't know if you can see here, Davy, you can see just those little hair marks in the soil, little hair marks over here from his bottom as he was moving around and maybe just sitting in the road listening for any predatory advance while he was moving in the evening. It is a nocturnal animal with very big eyes and very big ears. Marvelous stuff. We are going to continue on, and I wonder if any of you can guess what tree I might be explaining for you today. It is a wonderful tree, and it almost resembles a Mercedes-Benz. I wonder if you've heard of that before. What a morning. So, from our scrub air tracks, we're going to be going across to Mr. Hendry, who I believe also has something for you on the ground.
Yes, we do. We've got some Impala rams who have just sort of enjoying the morning. Some of them having a little bit of a sparring session. You know, everybody likes a different start to the morning. Some people like a slow start with coffee and something nice to eat. Others like to do their exercises. This one, of course, doing some stretching and then cleaning his teeth with his back hoof. I'm very pleased that I don't have to clean my teeth with my back hoof. There are two having a bit of a fight for him. That's it. There they are. One of them looking out from the bushes. He's obviously a bit nervous. This is not a serious fight between these two. It's just a little bit of sparring. Although, it looks like it could be a little bit angry. They are, of course, all practicing for the rut, which will take place in a few months' time. I always feel like this time of the year is a bit sort of difficult to... it doesn't have a designated sort of season, so if you know what I mean. No, that's probably very poorly put. But you know that the end of the year is the time of the lambing, and then going into the winter is the time of the rut, and then the winter we always talk about the dry season, and then as we come out of the dry season we have another kind of innocuous time leading up to the first rains, and we're in a bit of a time like that now, when there's nothing that is particularly expected, no sort of noteworthy seasonal change at this time of the year. But it is a magnificent time of the year because there is a little bit of water about and it is very warm indeed. Now, the fact that the camera is back on me indicates that Liam is sick and tired of looking at the Impala and he would like to continue with our leopard search, so that is what we will do. We've come to the waterhole here at Djuma and we have not found any sign of leopard. I'm wondering if we shouldn't just pop our heads onto the top of the damn wall there, Viam. But no, maybe not. We didn't see any tracks coming. Let us trust our tracking ability, although in my case that would be dangerous. So we're going to turn around now. We'll go back down Twin Dams Road and see if we can't pick him up that way. This might be Hosanna, I was just saying. Hosanna, of course, a 2-year-old male leopard, slightly larger than Tamba, and it's possible that it's him. Very difficult to tell what leopard you're looking at just from his footprint. But both of them non-territorial males lurking about here. Non-territorial because they're not yet old enough to have their territories. They're probably about at least 2 years off. At least 2 years off setting up their own territories. Hosanna finds himself orphaned. His mother, we think, died almost a year ago now, leaving him as an independent male leopard from, how old was he? He was about 14 months, which is really very early for a male leopard to become independent. His sister, the same. Unfortunately, we think that she has had some nasty fate befall her. We have not seen her for many months, which is surprising. There we have Mr. and Mrs. Wahlberg up in their tree. Now they did raise a chick this year. In fact, that's the chick. I think that's the baby. That's wonderful. And I say that because it is so very scruffy. It's just got the look of a young bird about it. Now I'm talking rubbish. The chick's in the nest. You seen the nest there, Jim? That's it. Look. Now this, we know that that's the chick. This is fascinating. The two parents are both pale form Wahlberg's eagles. This chap is what we'd call an intermediate form. So he's not the darkest they get, but he's very clearly not a pale form. Unless he's going to develop those feathers later, but I don't think so. Isn't that cool? Let me sneak slightly forward, Wimpy, and we might get us a better view. Try that. No, he's hidden because he's heard the car. Just keep an eye there, don't move from there. I'm just quickly going to check something. I think it's only 70 days or so until they're ready to fledge. Breeding. Nest, yes. Development care, yeah. 70 to 75 days. Really 60 days. So that's just his mother or father who has not bothered to go through the process of the morning ablutions just yet. Probably the father. His mother wouldn't be seen looking like that on a Sunday morning. She's gone out to get the Sunday morning croissant and espresso, and the father is just having a little bit of a lie-in. The youngster also looking forward to some form of breakfast confectionery. Joy, you say, does that mean pale form is dominant? No. I think what it indicates is that it is most certainly a recessive gene, or recessive combination of recessive genes. If both the parents are white, I don't know what the genetic causes of the paleness are, whether it's one gene or an interaction of many genes, but let's pretend it's one. If both parents are white, the chances of them having, if it is a recessive gene, the chances of them having a dark baby are what? Very small. Hang on a second. Let me just think about this carefully. No, it can't be. It's obviously a combination of genes. It cannot just be one gene. If they are both white and it was a recessive gene, it would be impossible for them to have a dark baby. Which means that it might not be a recessive gene at all. So I've made a mistake there. What this tells us is that it's not a recessive gene. If it is one gene, that there's an interaction going on here. It could in fact be a dominant gene. Chitty Chatty Meggy said they're born with fur and then get feathers when they fly. It's not fur. They are, in essence, feathers, but they are not feathers like they will have. You're correct in that they do absolutely shed that sort of birth down, if you like, because those feathers that they're born with are purely useful for keeping warm. They're not useful at all for trying to fly. It's very kind of Kirsten to tell me that we're looking at the pale form Wahlberg's eagle. I thought that's what we had. That's very kind of her. Kirsten is the director in the final control, and her coffee wasn't strong enough this morning, clearly. Alrighty, let's carry on before we lose too much light. Ravi, you're wondering about a hungry baboon eating the eggies of the eagly. Yes, I think a baboon would certainly eat the eggs of that eagle. I think it's something that they would really enjoy getting hold of. But I'm just trying to think why a baboon wouldn't go up there and eat the eggs. I mean, a baboon is perfectly capable of climbing a thorn tree like that. Maybe there are just other things to eat. Alright, we're going to continue staring at the ground for tracks of the male leopard. Let's go across now to Stivovo and find out if he has found anything of use to tell you.
Nothing of too much interest yet. We did pass a little tree, and Herbie assures me that the smell we could smell off of it was something known as a striped polecat. We couldn't find any tracks, but I'll show you what one looks like. It looks just like a skunk, and the smell was, how would you describe that, Darby?
Very strong.
It was very strong. Well done. He describes it as being very strong. It had a very sort of sweetish, overbearing sort of smell to it, which was hard to really put your finger on what exactly that was. But we couldn't find any tracks. It was up against the tree, and let me just show you. There we go, striped polecat. He looks very much like a skunk and behaves in a very similar sort of way, and it'll sort of lift its back legs up onto the tree and then urinate with a very strong anal gland, just like the skunk would do. And the black and white markings that you see on the body are indicating, do not eat me, I do not taste very nice. There's aposematic coloration for nocturnal animals, and I would love to see one. I would love to see one. I have never seen one. I've not even seen a track that I know of. But we are on our way sort of in a southeasterly direction. We're going to sort of head towards Treehouse Dam. We know that there is water there, so animals like to go and drink. So it's quite a good bet to say if we keep walking the direction, not only are we going to find tracks and signs, we're going to find the lovely tree I'm looking for. And on that note as well, we might find something big and hairy, which I think would be marvelous. It would be marvelous to find something this morning on foot. It's been a while since I've had an encounter with a dangerous animal, and I always do enjoy those because it just brings you right into the moment. And also, the last time I did a dangerous game encounter, I was in charge. I had the rifle. Today, Herbie's got that. So all I have to do is look smart and look pretty and not run. So, what a job. What a job. Beautiful to just be wandering through the wilderness. Snazzy asks, does the polecat smell like a skunk? I've never smelt a skunk, but I would guess that that smell that we're smelling now is very similar, very, very similar to that of a skunk. The process is the same. I mean, they're trying to say, do not come for me, and also they're giving off a perfume which is indicating territory, as well as they possibly have even more than one smell. One for territory, one for, if I spray this on you, it's going to make you smell or taste very bad and then leave me alone. I don't know a lot about skunks, but I would assume by the fact that it looks very much like a skunk that they've got a very similar sort of strategy. But it's something I'd have to read up about. I was quite surprised when Herbie called the smell, and it's lovely that when you're on foot like this, you don't have to see animals to know that they're here. And we call this a kind of passive sort of tracking or passive identification of animals, because tracking and signs of animals are indications of their presence. They've done of elephants in the forests in Central Africa. They know how many there are because of the amount of dung that they find in an area, and they work on how much an elephant defecates every single day, and they now have a good estimate of how many elephants there occur there. So through here we can find tracks, we can do camera trapping, all sorts of methods like this enable us to find out the presence of animals. And yes, you don't often find them, but through those passive methods we know that they're here without us actually physically seeing them, which would be marvelous to set up a camera trap. I do know the guys have been talking about that. It'd be nice to see what's coming in and out of the areas that we are frequenting, because sometimes the ground is just too hard to actually see any tracks. Too hard. Heather, very good question. Are there any mushrooms and flowers that attract flies? Oh, hello. We have found ourselves a little Gregory. You asked the question, are there any flowers that attract flies? Definitely the silver cluster leaf and the purple pod cluster leaf. They both have a very sort of smelly, gym-socky, cheesy sort of smell, and they definitely attract flies. I don't know of any mushrooms that do so. Mushrooms are they don't get pollinated. They're actually a fungus that produces spores, and the spores are distributed by wind, so there's no need for any insect. Here we have a beautiful little hinged tortoise. Hello. He is or she is hiding, very camouflaged here. I was watching briefly yesterday on TV as the ground hornbills were absolutely destroying what looked like a terrapin up in the Mara. Poor little guy, he didn't survive, but that is what happens. I'm going to just give him some blessings. Enjoy your morning, and we will see you shortly. It is obviously important, folks, never to pick these animals up in the wilderness. They have got a storage sack inside, almost like a big bladder, like what I have in my bag here for water, and they will drink whenever they can, and they can store water in that bursa sack. And what they do, almost like if you think about the polecats I was talking about before, by spraying off a very stinky smell, what a tortoise does is that when it gets picked up or attacked by something, it often releases that bursa. And I don't know if you've ever picked anything up and you suddenly get very wet, you get a bit of a fright and you throw the thing away. It adds in a bit of a defense or a let me go strategy, but once it does that, the chances of it getting that moisture back are quite difficult. This time of year the vegetation is very green, and there's a lot of moisture around, so it'd probably be okay, but still ethically, I don't want to stress this little chap out. Let it just walk along and just do its thing, and we will leave you to your camouflage, young lady or sir. I hope that answers your question about the flies. Ooh, we've found some very fresh scrub hare dung here compared to what we normally find, and I would say we've probably got a little scrub hare warren nearby, because the colour of this here is very dark. Here's what they look like after second digestion. And for those of you who were not aware, scrub hares practice a feeding technique called coprophagy, which means that they will feed on grass and vegetation just like this. You can actually see small cropping on the grass here. It's potentially scrub hare feeding signs, because you can see the little tracks here in the grass, and that's where his bottom would have been. So his tracks were there. He was just nibbling on the grass here. Even over here, this classic 45-degree cut here in that branch. Can you see that, Davy? Classic 45-degree, and then he'll defecate. And what often these guys will do is where they have their little scrub tree where they will nest at night, where they hide, they'll often defecate something quite similar to this, quite similar to that, and then when they wake up in the morning, they will eat that again. Or when they wake up in the evening to go out feeding, they'll eat that again, and they'll re-ingest it. They've got a very poor digestive system, so they actually re-eat their dung to maximize the amount of nutrients that they're taking in. And this is an old one, and this is very fresh. It's still wet. So that was from moments ago, but it's possible that that might actually turn into that, and I'm not at the actual site where they were, but there's a lot of dung over here, a lot of dung. So he was doing some feeding and some defecation. It's wonderful, wonderful. We don't see him, but the signs are here. So while we continue on our quest into this magical wilderness, we're going to go back to Mr. Hendry, who I believe is searching for a cat.
I am searching with great futility at the moment. We found tracks of a tundi, I think, or a female leopard, coming down this way. And tundi, for those of you who are wondering, a 10-year-old. Is she 10? She's 10. 10-year-old female leopard. And unfortunately have had no sign of the actual cat, and her footprints are simply not nearly as attractive as she is. She's got a young cub, last seen on this termite mound here. And her tracks were heading in this direction. But I do not see her anywhere around here. Anyway, there's a little track that heads through here, and I'm going to carry on along it, see if we do not get lucky in some way. This is where we drove yesterday at the same time. Lots of birds shouting. Hey, it's very quiet. There's no birds yelling at each other. All as I can tell. All the birds, let's go to.
And so, folks, we didn't go much further than we were before. We apologise for James' signal there, but we found what looks like a scrub hair pellet that has been found by some fungus-growing termites. We're actually on the base of a massive fungus-growing termite mound, and these guys are building what looks like a little chute or tunnel over some organic material, including the scrub hair dung, and then they start to feed on it. What this enables them to do, if you can get a little visual on those termites, they are very, very white and pale in color, and essentially they've got no melanin. So as soon as the sun comes out, they burn. So they can't afford to be in the sun. So what they do is they're active at night, they build these tunnels, almost like a covering, and then underneath that tunnel they can work all day through the blistering hot sun, and the melanin, well, the lack of melanin and the sunshine doesn't affect them, and they will completely consume that scrub hair pellet. So the smallest of pellets, the smallest of dung that we find out here is useful and is going to be recycled back into the wilderness, which is phenomenal stuff. The nutrient cycle, and if you can just pan left or right of us here, Davy, where you can see the termite mound, you can see how the grass on the termite mound here is all eaten. We've got patches all across here, and this grass is very short and cropped. Where you look further back there, there's a lot more grass. This entire mound here is just a nutrient sink. There's huge amounts of nutrients being reabsorbed in here. So anything that grows here tastes a lot better than over there. So this will be a spot where animals come to feed and spend their time, and that's because the termites are taking the nutrients, which is lost, and putting it back into the soil. What a marvelous little adventure. Here we're on the termite mound. It doesn't look like the top of it is very active. You can see there's lots of holes, lots of cavities, but the bottom of the termite mound is monstrous. And they say what you see above ground is probably 2/3 below ground. And remember, folks, that this will link all the way to the water table. And how can we tell that? Well, we've got some indicator trees. Here we got one right here. Who can tell me quickly out there what tree this is? Quickly. I wonder if there's anybody out there awake who can remember this tree that I taught you a few days ago. This tree, in fact, indicates water and indicates a form of a seepline. So you can see the leaf there. It's a very silvery color. This is the silver cluster leaf, and they grow where there's water. It indicates water, so it's accessing whatever moisture is being brought up here by the termites. Wonderful stories to be seen in the sand. Wonderful indeed. On we go, Darby. Juliet would like to know if I worry about snakes. Julia, I have seen a number of snakes before in my life, but I do not worry about them, because when I see them, then I worry about them. But until I see them, I forget that there are snakes, because what's the point in walking around thinking there's snakes everywhere? You're just going to do yourself a bit of a heart problem. There are snakes out here. There are snakes wherever we go. We just walk. It's one of the reasons why when we walk in a single file, because essentially I have the first opportunity to walk or step on a snake, and then the second person has the second opportunity, and the third person is generally the person who stands on the snake. So it's important for us to actually walk in single file so as to avoid, if we walked in a big line like this, like people do when they're beating animals to get them out of bushes, we're going to encounter more snakes than if we walk in a single file. Single file, less disturbance, smaller profile, less chance of any snakes. So while we continue on talking about all sorts of interesting things and looking for the small details in the bush, please send through your questions. See if anybody can remember what tree that was. I'd love to know if you can remember. And we are going to be going up to the Masai Mara, to Brent, who I believe has managed to evade the rain from last night.
Look at this. A few more members of the loiter herd of wildebeest on the short grass plains to the south of Talek, heading right into cheetah country. So we're in the area that is favoured by the 5 boys, the 5 male cheetah, known as the Fast 5 or the Musketeers. And it's going to be very exciting if these wildebeest hang around for a while and decide to give birth in this area. Now, of course, these wildebeest are part of the loiter herd, which traditionally migrate through to the east of us, but it seems for the last few years, due to external pressures, they've been staying in the Mara, which is very exciting for us, because can you imagine 200,000 wildebeest? So, well, take away the males, at least 150,000 females giving birth. It's very exciting, and you can see the low-lying mist. There was a huge amount of rain last night. That's why we disappeared out of the show a bit early, and we couldn't cross the Talek River and had to go round through the villages. It continued raining till about midnight last night, and hopefully I'm not going to join the Marshmallow Club while I'm here. So, good morning. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Adrian on camera, and we're in search of cheetah this morning. Hopefully they're going to be up on these crests somewhere. This is their favorite area. Remember, if you do have any questions for us, hashtag Safari Live on whatever platform you might be watching. So, it's beautiful, it's early, and let's go find some cats. It just seems more wildebeest rolling in and just coming up over the hills here. So heading straight towards the area that those boys like to hang out in. So let's hope luck is on our side and we find them bright and early and on the move. And it sounds like everyone out there is excited to find cheetah. So are Adrian and I. Now, the hyenas were making an incredible racket opposite Olashaki last night, but I think they were having a little internal tiff rather than fighting with lion or cheetah. Now, I'm looking for the slender, tall, slinky and sexy spotted cat. James is looking for an equally sexy spotted cat that's a bit thicker in their forequarters. Let's go have a look.
That is quite a link there from Brent Leo Smith. Right, we are looking for the stockier version of the spotted cat, and so far failing dismally to find evidence of cat or the cat itself. We're going to have a quick look down this road. we might be lucky. You'll notice that I'll start to become more and more frustrated and irritated as the morning goes on. I find these mornings very difficult, simply because the opportunities are enormous. We had Shadow and Not Barbara yesterday around here, and then we also had Tamba, we also had Tundi, and there are tracks everywhere, and you come out in the morning thinking so many good prospects, to use the words of Scott Dyson, and you drive around and then you see one diker. It's very difficult. Anyway, such is life. Many Frankolinos calling, many baboon tracks on the road as well. Now, leopards, of course, as we know, will avoid baboons, because baboons don't like leopards very much, and as a troop will do some serious damage. There are some impalas, Bumpi. Are they nyalas? Then there's a plug not plugged into your camera. Is that normal? Oh, that's for the other camera. Okay. Sorry. Right. Let's see if we can get a view of those nyalas quickly. Yes, it is, Anna Marie. You're absolutely correct. You say patience is a virtue. It's not one I am blessed with, however. There are some nyalas. Well spotted, Viam. Lovely red colours. And as I made mention of yesterday, and at least last year, I think it was at this time, and I was doing some reading on it the other day, that red colour is very obvious to those of us with colour vision, of course. So I was doing a bit of reading on actual colour blindness amongst animals. And it would seem that cats and dogs, but cats in particular in this area, of course, because they're the ones we're talking about at the moment, have got a limited amount of colour vision. I'm going to turn around here. This is not really where I wanted to go. And there are three kinds of cones. Cones are sort of cells that you get in your eyes. There are three kinds of colour cones: red, blue and green. And we've got all three. That's why we see in glorious technicolor. The cats have got limited numbers of green and blue. Now what that means is that they do not see red. So the contrast that they see is much better than ours. They have an increased number of rods which pick up they pick up dimmer light, I suppose you could say. But they do not have red cones. And what that means is that they cannot see red. And so that reddish-brown colour will be almost invisible. Not almost invisible, but very difficult to see amongst the green. And the better to think about this is about those human colour blindness tests. And if you don't know what those are, just quickly Google it. Google human colour blind test, and you'll get one of the images. But where they put sort of green bubbles, put a number inside the green bubbles in purple bubbles or red bubbles. And those who are colourblind cannot see the number, and those who are not colourblind, well, to animal out here that read numbers would not be able to see that number if you put red inside the green. And so that's why the red colour, that sort of chestnut red colour of the Impala and the Nyala and that sort of thing, are in fact good colours to be out here if your major predators are the cats. Isn't that a lovely story, Viam? Yes, it is. Now, on the back end of that lovely story, we are going to go back to Stivovo, who seems to be up in the north, hopefully somewhere near those tracks of Tundi with Herbert's skills.
And look at that, folks. Another beautiful morning in the African savannah. It never gets boring. As I've mentioned before, my favorite time of day. Absolutely beautiful. It's still cool enough. Difficult to really hear, but can hear the chin spot batis saying 3 blind mice. The long-winded chirr of the crested barbet. The Cape turtle dove who's telling us to work harder. And also the penetrating of the common scimitar bill. Beautiful long beak. It almost sounds like a raptor. It's quite confusing like that, but it is not. It is related to the woodhoopoes, that long scimitar-shaped beak. Beautiful morning. Well, we are continuing. We did pass some of the tracks that James saw before of Thandi, we believe. We are in that area. I'm not sure if we're going to follow up on her, because we might. I'll chat with Herbie and see what he thinks, but we are still heading sort of in the southerly direction towards Treehouse Dam. So, Lady Starfire, you were very correct in your answer. The silver cluster leaf was indeed the plant we were talking about. Congratulations there. I'm glad the tree knowledge is sinking in and everybody's learning these things. Marvelous stuff. And we are going to meander into the sunrise. Anna-Marie, are there any leadwood trees? You are 100% correct. I've just passed, I think, a baby leadwood. Let me double check. While we were standing waiting, look at this. Here is a baby leadwood tree. And you might ask, how do I know that? And a lot of people get very confused because they recognize this tree when it is huge and towering and one of the magnificent 6 trees in the bush. But if you can come really closely, Davy, onto one of the leaves, you can actually see that the leaves are pixelated. Should I put that in my hand, perhaps? If you look at the leaf itself, those of you who remember the old computers when we used to have pixels, you can see it there, just little silver dots. That is the pixelation that we talk about. It's almost got a greyish tinge to it. Both sides have got the pixelation. But then another very interesting characteristic feature, if I show you the branch here, we get what is called decussate. So there's 2 branches completely opposite, and then these 2 branches are at a 90-degree angle to the first 2. So there's 2, and then 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 2. There's only 2 trees in the area. I don't know if we get them a piney pomegranate here, probably not. But there's only 2 trees I know of in the Savannah area that have this arrangement of the branches, and it's quite easy to remember that way. Obviously, when they're really big and giant, we can see by the crocodile skin grey bark, which is very easy, but most people, and I know all the students that I've trained, I used to give them this one, and they used to really struggle until I did this small identification. So we are going to continue. We're going to find Herbie here quickly and see what he's doing, and we're going to pass this beautiful leadwood tree, Makosi. I'm blessing the ancestors, and we're going to be going up to Ralph in the Mara, who would like to say good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome one and all to the Mara Triangle. Yes, we are coming to you live from Kenya, and what a wonderful morning it is. It's still before sunrise and you're watching Safari Live. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera we've got Craig. How's it, Craig? Good morning. Folks, it is a wonderful morning. The sun is still yet to rise, and we're watching the hot air balloons floating effortlessly over the Mara River. And over that side we've got Brent, and he's obviously looking for Cheetah and all the rest. And for us, well, I think we're going to be starting up just now and heading on down towards the Hyena den. All the lodges, everybody has now started out with the vehicles, spreading out, seeing what they can find. And as we do have a vehicle coming up here, I'm also going to start up. Now, please don't forget to join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. We'd love for you to be involved in the largest game drive in the world. Now, as I said, we're going to slowly make our way towards the Hyena den. And speaking of Hyena, it seems that Brent has already managed to find one.
we've got some hyenas munching on what looks to be a stomach of some unfortunate beast, just the stomach lining. And quite a big animal, whatever it was. Possibly a wildebeest. Might even be something a bit bigger, like a buffalo. It's a very big piece of stomach. Now, I checked the tracks, because I can see tracks after the rain last night. And it doesn't look like they stole it from the hyena. Look at that obese hyena coming in. That little one is so fat. This one doesn't want to share. Not quite as obese as the other. You can see there's quite a few hyenas just lying about here. There were some lion tracks that crossed the road a little earlier. So maybe that's the remnants of what the lions had for dinner last night. Now this clan is quite a big clan, the Talik clan. I think there's about over 100 individuals in this Talik clan, but they spread out quite far. And it's very seldom you see... Oh, it's tripping! Silly hyena. It's trying to run away with the stomach content, but keeps standing on it. It doesn't get very far. Funny little things. Quite smelly as well. Although they probably had a good wash last night with the huge amount of rain. Now, if we have a look a little bit behind the hyenas, there's actually a very beautiful sight of the Eland on the top of the ridge with the mountain a little bit to the right. There we go. Oh, let's just stick on the hyenas for a second. There might be a bit of thievery. No, let's see if it's going to trip again. Don't stand on the scale. Don't stand on it. Don't stand on it. Oh, that was quite tame. I thought there might be a little bit of an argument over the leftover stomach contents, but this hyena is so fat. I mean, it's just feeling lonely, wants to get close to its friend. It's very seldom you see a skinny hyena in the Mara. Okay, well, they've calmed down. Let's have a look at those Eland walking off to the right there. So there's a group of them, but there's lovely views off to the right. Those are Thompsons. Keep going. Keep going a bit. A little bit more. There we go. Those are just really lovely with that huge panorama behind them of the hills right down in the southeast of the Mara. Beautiful. Ravi's saying, I heard Eland chew on horns. Sometimes, Ravi, just like a dog would, it's more of a chew toy. They are unable to digest keratin, but then they will swallow it and then pass it out again. Oh, and the sun is about to pop up. Almost about to pop up. Let's come back across towards where the sun rises. So there we go, the sun, there we go, look at that, about to explode out of the hills to directly to the east of us. You actually couldn't get more east than that at the moment. It should be popping up any second now. Now there seems to be less haze on this side of the Mara. So there we go. Let's stick on the sun. Sorry. There we go. There we go. Here it comes. Peaking up at the moment, and it always amazes me how fast the sun rises or sets. But let's just watch. This is going to be quite spectacular, and I think let's just keep quiet and enjoy the morning sounds as the sun rises. Now you might hear the of a balloon and a car, unfortunately, but they should stop soon. Less than 5 minutes, that sun is going to be up and over the horizon. Here's some zebra's calling, rufous-napped larks, northern wheat ears. Ground horn off in the distance. Tom says we need the Lion King theme playing while we watch this. Tom, I'll take the sounds of the bush over the Lion King theme any day of the week. There we go, nearly there. It's always wonderful to start in the morning before the sun gets up and to enjoy it as it starts its route through the sky. Robin says spectacular. Indeed it is, Robin. Absolutely spectacular. What a stunning morning. Well, just the last little bit to pop out now. There we go. It's up. Mrs. Grumpy says, I tried to work with Safari Live in the background, but it always ends up in the foreground. Well, I do apologize for interrupting your work, Mrs. Grumpy. Actually, I don't. You should definitely be watching Safari Live. Okay, well, the sun's popped up. We've still got Cheetah to find. We're going to leave these hyenas to munch on the remnants of whatever was murdered in the Mara last night. And we're going to keep heading towards that sort of area just along here, where I'm hoping the cheetahs are going to be. But while we bump and splash and splish and slip and slide our way all the way there, let's go across to Steve, who's getting well acquainted with the soils of the Sabi sands.
The smells and the sounds indeed from a very wet Masai Mara. We are still here in Djuma, where it is nice and dry and not yet too hot. I was talking before about the scrubhead dung. I have found another piece here, and we spoke about the term coprophagy, which means to eat one's own dung. Now, the purpose of that with scrub hares is to increase the amounts of nutrients that they can get. They've already chewed this once, comes out and they chew it again to get maximum nutrients. Another animal that does something quite similar, but not maybe for the nutrients, but also for the gut flora. I know if all of you out there ever have been on antibiotics, you know that it's important to take probiotics afterwards to basically influence and to provide the microorganisms in our system for digestion and for nutrient breakdown. And what we have here is a wonderful pile of elephant dung. And it is not rhino dung. You can see the outside has got this beautiful orangey. It's got a little bit of a dark tinge to it because it's got a lot of grass component as well. But because of the leaves and sticks in here, it has got that orangey component. And what elephants do is, I mean, look at that. The digestion of this is terrible. There's absolutely hardly anything broken down. Entire sticks in there still. The breakdown is very poor. But what they do very soon in their life, and we saw that baby the other day, they were just born with Tristan. Elephants will defecate, and the youngsters will actually pick up mum's dung and will eat it. I'm not going to do that now, and I don't think it's doing it for nutrients in the beginning. It's doing it to put those enzymes, not enzymes, but the microflora in the gut, in the very enlarged cecum, which is similar to our appendix, for breakdown and digestion. Without that microflora, the food will just pass through. There'll be no breakdown at all. Elephants and these hindgut fermenters rely heavily on microbial breakdown in their lower intestine, in the cecum. And without that, it would basically just come out as it went in. It is a really poor system, but they need that flora. So the scrub hare does it for nutrients, the elephants, nutrients, but also for the flora. And if you've never had a probiotic before and you're not digesting your food very well, there's a good idea to have some. And on that note, we also had that little tortoise. And another form of feeding that the tortoise will do is, the tortoise has got that wonderful shell, and he needs to maintain that shell. And how do you maintain that shell? You need calcium. And what we have here is some old hyena dung. You can tell that by the whiteness. It is very old because it's completely broken down to just white. I'm not going to touch it because there's all sorts of parasites and worms that can be found in hyena dung. But what is in there is lots of calcium. And tortoises, specifically tortoises, will come along and eat on hyena dung as well as on bone. And so this would be a form of coprophagy, but because it's also bone, they would call it osteophagy. So quite easy to remember those terms. Phagy is the eating of, and copro is fecal matter. Osteo, as in osteoporosis, is bone. And then another nice one that a lot of animals do, especially when the minerals in the vegetation are low, is geo, where they actually eat rocks and soil. And any of you who farm out there know about cattle. They put down licks for them, for salt and all sorts of copper and all sorts of immune system deficiencies that they might be getting from where they are. Okay, you'll often see it with female kudu will be chewing on bone when they are pregnant. I've seen a giraffe feeding on a giraffe bone that a lion had killed. Let me just grab my book. We don't want to leave this precious item in the wilderness. We're still on search for that Mercedes-Benz tree. Ivy would like to know, did I do my thesis on dung? No, I did a thesis on medicinal plants, on the propagation of them, trying to do some organic sort of treatments to make them more commercially viable from an organic point of view. But I have spent a lot of time on my hands and knees sniffing and smelling and prodding animal dung and the ins and outs. So here, as an example of bone, so lots of animals will come around to feed on something like this, and there are carcasses all over the bush of these bones, and you'll often see it in the winter months when conditions are getting a lot worse. You'll find a bone or a carcass that's been in one place is constantly moving. Warthog will feed on there, giraffe, kudu. You find it a lot with pregnant animals. Kudu females when they're pregnant, giraffe females when they're pregnant. They need the calcium. The baby growing inside is using a lot of their energy, a lot of their nutrients. So bone like this, very, very useful. Very, very useful. And you'll often find little teeth marks and things. Obviously, hyena just eat it all, but a lot of animals need that calcium in their diet. Some of us take calcium supplements. Maybe we should just take some bone home and gnaw on it when we need to. As a vegetarian, I need to supplement iron in my diet because I don't get enough of it. I can eat a lot of spinach, but it's difficult to get enough in. So, while we continue on in this wilderness adventure, we're going to be going back across to Mr. James Henry. I have no idea what he has, but I'm sure it's going to be incredible.
That is grey go-away bird for where is the leopard? And this fellow is not answering me. I think he speaks a slightly different dialect than from the one that I am speaking. Now we're close to Tree House. Oh, there we go. Oh, yes, yes. Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. And what else? Not much. That grey go-away bird was saying, I've seen leopards, but I think you should find them yourself. Sarah, you're wondering about mange and birds and whether birds can get mange. I don't really see why they shouldn't. I mean, it's an infection of the skin. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a bird with mange before. But I don't see why they shouldn't get it. It's not, unless it needs the hair. The little mites need the hair of mammals, but I don't think so. I mean, I think it's purely on the skin. So I would imagine they probably could. What are you looking at? Can you see a leopard? Looks rather alarmed, surprised, distressed. Perhaps just has a hangover. Do you have a hangover? I think these birds are great. They've got such character, despite their sort of inescapably dull colour. Yes. And their little crest is too wonderful. Now we have come, well, we drove all the way down to Twin Dams, up the southern boundary, along to Treehouse Dam, which is where we've got to now, and I'm afraid we've had absolutely no luck. But that's okay. It's a gorgeous Sunday morning. You can see the clouds are slowly burning away, and we're enjoying our little Sunday morning drive, despite the fact that VM is deeply sort of put out by my incompetence at finding spotted cats.
Yeah, I'll give you another chance.
Thanks. He says he'll give me another chance. That's very kind of him. Alright, let's check the water hole. See what we can spot there. And then we shall press on, as usual. Fortitude and patience. Is the hippopotamus there? Is there? Yes. Look at that, VM. A hippopotamus. A hypopotamus in a treehouse water hole. Now, Cheetah, you have an appropriate name for this question, Cheetah. You say, is it possible to trick a bird by playing a call? Absolutely, it's possible. You can often get birds to call back or come and investigate if you play a recording of their calls, and we do it from time to time, just to get birds to behave in ways that we'd like them to. But it's not the nicest thing in the world to do. While you're looking at this rather nervous hippo's water, I'm just going to scan with my binoculars to see if I cannot see something of other interest around here. At the moment, I cannot. Now, Brentley Smith has managed to find himself both the largest birdie and the largest antelope there in the Masai Mara, and he would like to tell you about them in 3 seconds.
Indeed. Well, there's the largest antelope. Now I'm going to keep quiet for you to listen. Can you guys hear that clicking? As soon as the eland moves, I'm just going to hope he moves a little bit faster and you can hear it more clearly. It sounds like an almost mechanical click. Now that is actually the eland's tendons clicking. Isn't that incredible? Now, I'm going to ask you, why do you think an eland's tendons click? Hashtag Safari Live if you know the answer. Why does an eland's tendons click? That's a beautiful big bull. Probably weighs more than a buffalo, probably around 900 kilograms. Some eland can even go over 1,000 kilograms, up to a ton. They are truly massive beasts. Jojo says, it sounds like a clock ticking. That's an excellent description, Jojo. It does sort of sound like that. Now, as James was saying, we not only have the largest antelope, we also have the largest birds. Quite a big group of them. Off to the left, a flock of ostriches. There we go. Now, the one thing, I've seen baby crowned cranes recently, I've seen tiny little Cory bustards, but we are yet to find baby... Sorry. We haven't seen baby ostriches yet, but I've been on the lookout. Starlight says they click because nature wanted some natural music. There we go. Ostriches also out grazing this morning. Now, I stopped in this particular spot to check for the cheetah, but unfortunately all I see is Thompson's gazelle, Eland, Grant's gazelle. There is a huge amount of game in this valley, so I think I'm going to check back towards Sekanani. So I'm not seeing any sign of the cheetah here, just lots and lots of animals spread through the valley. There we go. Okay, let's turn around and head back towards the Sekanani side. I just wanted to stop on this high ground. Kobe says, is it to attract females? Kobe, it's not, because females also click. So it's not just the males. But it's just so lovely and still this morning that we were able to hear it, because often you could just faintly hear it and the mics unfortunately don't pick it up. But no, it's not to attract females, because the females' hooves, or tendons, sorry, also click. So there's a couple of different theories, but Judy H has got one of them spot on. It is indeed amongst the males, less so amongst the females. The louder you can click, the bigger you are, the more dominant you can be. So that is one theory. But the real answer is no one's actually 100% sure why. So there's quite a lot of different theories, but no one is exactly 100% sure why. There's dominance, there's predator avoidance, which doesn't make sense to me at all, but I'd say probably the one that makes the most sense is the dominance display amongst the males. It's very seldom Eland will actually physically fight. They do, but it's very seldom, so maybe that clicking does play a big role in showing off dominance. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head down to that patch of bushes over there, and then ride the ridges that the boys like to work, and check their favorite scent marking spots to see if there's any sign of them. As I said, after all that rain, it makes the roads a little bit hazardous. However, it does make it a little bit easier for us to see where the cheetah have been, because we should be able to see tracks quite clearly. Bouncy, bouncy, slippery, slippery. Well, we've all got our favorite spots in the Masai Mara, and it seems like Ralph is back at his, the North Clan Hyena Den.
Thanks, Brent, and yes, it is definitely one of my favorite spots here in the Mara. Folks, we've just arrived at the hyena den, and look at that lovely dew on the spider's webs between the grass. Now, we saw one of the little cubs out when we arrived, but it seems that none of the adults are back just yet, probably from their evening looking for food. And so the little cub quickly ran down back into the den, and I think it doesn't seem like there's even a babysitter around. So maybe it's been quite good offerings with the hunting wise, so maybe the adults are really enjoying themselves, but I think we're still going to wait here. It's a lovely scene with this mist that's coming through in the backdrop, and the cubs are here. They're just obviously hiding like they should do inside the burrow, inside the den, when the adults aren't here. And as I say, I don't even see a babysitter. I'm assuming that there's something happening with the adults, and whether that's that they've killed something. And so I think we're going to stay here and wait on and see if the adults return, because there's going to be lots of action after that. But while we do that, let's send you on down to Steve, who is still out on foot.
Out on foot indeed. Hi, Ralph. Thank you once again. Hope you're doing wonderfully this morning, sir. I have decided to not do another dung segment, but maybe a small grass segment, if you will. I believe everyone's very interested in the dung that I'm doing. But here we've got a very nice plant, or grass, known as herringbone grass. Almost looks like the Garfield movies or those cartoons where he eats a fish and pulls out the bones, and that's what you see. And this is actually quite an interesting plant. It's regarded as an increaser 2, which means it increases in areas of disturbance. And we're very close to Treehouse Dam now, and so this plant will increase in relation to overgrazing, which is a good thing. It's not the most nutritional plants in the world, and a lot of these increaser 2s have a very low grazing value. So nature has kind of come up with a wonderful way of securing the soil. If everything tasted phenomenal, everything would be eaten. But a lot of these increaser 2s, ones that increase in relation to overgrazing, you get plants that actually cover the soil. And around us here, we're littered with what looks like mainly increaser 2s, because we are right next to the dam. And I'm going to see if this works. It's kind of like a little magic trick that can be done with this. Just bear with me, see if it works. But see how I can make it rise in my hand. Isn't that just phenomenal? I know Kirsty's absolutely loving my fascinating trick. But if you take these plants, you can pull this entire grass out, and you can throw it into water, and what it does is it actually kills the Bilharzia parasite. And if you're not familiar with what Bilharzia parasite is, it is a snail-borne parasite that is very, very common in Africa in very slow, stagnant moving water, and it actually gets into your skin either through cuts in the skin, or can go through sort of urinary tracts, and it affects your liver and your kidneys, and it can actually be fatal if you are not careful. But this lovely plant can be used to treat Bilharzia. Wonderful in the fact that it looks after the soil, and that we can use it to get rid of all sorts of dangerous parasites in the water. And come closely to this one, Davy. This is a grass I believe James was talking about the other day, known as carrot seed. And this is not an increaser 2. This is a pioneer, and what pioneers do, pioneers move into areas that are or overgrazed completely. So this patch here was probably, there was no grass here before, and this seeds, see how they come off like that? These seeds will actually live in the soil until next year. They're flowering right now, and in probably about 2 weeks these plants will disappear altogether, but those seeds will stay in the soil there, and as soon as there's rains next season, they'll come back up again. These are the primary reason, well, one of the primary reasons why we wear these magnificent things on our socks. But while we look at these grasses and continue, I believe Mr. Henry has got the actual scrub hare for you this morning.
We do have an actual scrub hare. I might not be able to find you a leopard, but I can find a scrub hare. That is a lie. I cannot find anything. Viam can find scrub hare. How he spotted this creature sitting where it is, I don't know. But I suspect this is where the little scrub hare is going to bed down for the day. They're, of course, supposed to be nocturnal, And this one is lurking underneath a weeping wattle tree and just having some last pieces of grass before settling in for the day. And they live in what we call a form. So they don't burrow into the ground. They live in a sort of nest, informal nest of softish vegetation, I guess. There are lots and lots of scrub hares around. I'd love to be able to do some kind of population measure. I wonder if that could be possible. We should probably get some student in to do his masters on how many scrub hares there are. But I suspect we would be astonished by the number of them. That's what we went past. That's the view VM had as we drove past. Isn't that amazing? VM, does that mean that our sighting of the scrub hare is over?
Leopard time.
It's leopard time, says VM. Okay, as you were. Let's continue. Q-tip, aka the earbud. You're wondering about a scrub hare and a rabbit and what's the difference? Well, the difference between a hare and a rabbit, Mr. Q-tip, aka the earbud, there are quite a few differences actually. A rabbit is normally diurnal, so active during the day. They live in burrows, so they will dig burrows and live underground, as per Watership Down. They are also, because of the way they live, their youngsters are born very altricial or helpless. So they're born blind, they can't hear anything, it takes a while for them to be able to move around properly. Whereas a scrub hare, a little bit like an antelope, has a youngster that is born precocial, can move very quickly after birth, and that's because they don't live in burrows. The other thing is that a rabbit is generally a hopper, whereas a hare is a runner. And if you see a hare moving, you will see immediately what I mean. They've got long back and front legs, whereas a rabbit has got long, powerful hopping back legs and very short front legs. So those are the basic differences between rabbits and hares. Sheila, you're wondering if scrub hares live in a family or alone. I'm afraid scrub hares live alone. But don't worry, they choose to live alone. I think we'll go this way, Liam. I had a feeling. And then we'll go and check those tracks. It's an interesting question, that, because it's such a human question, which is unsurprising, because I'm pretty sure that the question was asked by a human being as opposed to some other kind of creature. And it's something that we use the term family a lot when we ask questions. Do lions live in a family? Or we talk about them. This is a leopard family. And it's such an important part of who we are as human beings. But it is such it doesn't exist out here, but for in the birds. It is extremely unusual to find the traditional family in the mammal world. Almost never do the males stick around to play any part in child raising. And I just think it's so interesting that we ask about this, and here's another example. We're going to go across to Ralph now, and he, of course, is sitting with what many people might refer to as a family of hyenas, when in actual fact it is anything but, and he will tell you about that now.
Yes, thank you, folks. And we're still sitting here. There we go. We've had one or two of the little pups just coming out. Did I say pups? I meant cubs. There we go. There was the babysitter that I thought was AWOL and not doing her duties. She popped up out of the grass. She was obviously lying down in the long grass where we couldn't see her, and when I started to speak, she stood up and she came and she walked around the den, And then one or two of these little cubs saw her, obviously, and came out, and they've been running up and down a little bit, but I think they just can't wait to be getting out. And so having seen the babysitter, they thought, well, everyone's started to return, and they coming out a little bit, but the babysitter has gone off now, and she's also just in the long grass just off of us over here in front. It disappeared there. I think she's laid down again, so we're just waiting. We have heard some hyena calling off in the distance. Maybe they're starting to make their way back. And one of the most interesting things to watch with hyenas is especially around that greeting ceremonies. If these hyena have been out all night and return, these cubs start coming out, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. But we do just need to be a little bit patient and wait for that moment, see if they return. We obviously don't want to sit here for the whole drive this morning, but if it happens in the next while, it will be amazing. Julia, you want to know if all hyena in a clan are related? Well, Julia, yes and no. What happens is generally the females that are born within a clan, they don't pair, and they would stay here within the same clan or group. But the males are the ones that move off, push off, and go and see if they can join a different clan. So in the same clan that we have here, we'll have a lot of related females, but not many related males. So are one half the other. So that's how it works with the hyena clans. The females generally stay quite similar to that of lions, very similar. But it's still a very beautiful morning, lots of mist around. This thing is absolutely stunning. But as I say, we're just waiting for these hyena to start making their way back. It does seem promising with them calling off in the distance. You can't hear it just now, but they were calling a minute ago. So we just have to wait and see. Lady Starfire, thanks for your question. You want to know how big is the range or the territory of the hyena? Well, obviously the home range will be a lot bigger than the territory. They can move for hundreds of kilometers actually, but generally the territory, I believe that they talk about 80 kilometers squared or so. So you're probably looking at about 50 miles squared, and the den site normally being the central point within their territory, so you could say probably in a big wide circle, not perfectly, but a big circle around this hyena den would be where the territory would stretch out from. But that doesn't stop them from moving out of their territory into their home range, but they wouldn't obviously defend that or mark that, etc. So they can move very vast distances, especially during the night, and especially for food. In places in Namibia, they can move up to 120 kilometers within one evening. It is incredible. They can take that lope that hyena are famous for, and they can do that for a few hours during the night and cover over 100 k's. So, and that would be probably in your about 70 miles that they would be able to traverse in one evening. It is literally incredible. So the hyena, definitely the real long distance runners of the predators. And speaking of a long distance and moving around the bush, let's head on back to Steve, who I think is doing much of the same.
Yes, we are. Thanks, Ralph. We are on a walk. We are loving it out here. The birds are calling. Herbie heard some elephants in the distance. We're trying to see if we can relocate, but at the moment there's no tracks. Just we can just hear them. And while we walk along, I've got a wonderful grass here that is growing in the shade of this tree, and it looks like fingers, does it not? And this is actually a very nice grass out here called finger grass. Very easy to remember. And the species, well, not the species, but the genus name is Digitaria. How easy is that to remember for a scientific name? And what's also easy to remember is, if any of you have been to Italy, This grass is a good to eat, which is a very, very palatable and tasty grass. I could eat it all day. So when we talk about this one would be a climax, a grazing value of about 9 or 10 out of 10. Now you might ask, what is a grazing value? Now when we look at plants or grasses that have a lot of fiber or chemicals, that brings down the palatability. Palatability means the ability to digest. Okay, so now this grass produces a lot of leaf. You can actually see it underneath the tree here. So a lot of leaf. The leaf is quite soft and juicy. Low chemicals, low fiber. When we find those thatching grasses that have got a lot of chemicals, a lot of cellulose, their grazing value goes down. Even though they might have a high nutrient value, the grazing value goes down. So that's something that farmers in South Africa specifically look at when they look at grasses. Does it taste good? Is there a lot of leaf? And that gives it a grazing value. Good to know. From my side, tastes fantastic. James Richard asks, what grass species here remains palatable for the shortest amount of time? Now, a lot of these grasses that are quite, as we would say, unpalatable as they get dry, when they are growing initially, that new shoot growth, if I could just maybe look in over here, you can have a look at this grass here. The green stuff is generally quite palatable when it's growing, but as soon as it gets old and tough, it starts getting unpalatable. So when we look at the grasses, there's a stink grass, the thatching grass. When the shoots are young and very green, they're edible. But as they start to dry, the chemicals become too much and the compounds and the cellulose becomes too much. So I would definitely say probably the thatching grass is palatable for a very short period of time, as well as stink grass, Bothrochloa. I haven't found any of it around, but I'll look out for it. Starlight asks, are there any grasses that are unsafe for humans to eat? Well, we generally can't actually eat grasses. We don't have the ability to digest them. What I am doing physically when I find a grass is like this one, is I grab the inflorescence, which is the flower part, and I eat that little bit. Nice and juicy. This is buffalo grass. But to actually go and eat this, it will make me vomit straight away. You'll often see cats and dogs doing it. You probably see it at home as well. I've seen leopards do it here quite often. If I went and put this in my mouth and started chewing, it would actually make me regurgitate. That's just what it does. We're not adapted to eat these things. Maybe if we put it into a little stew and cooked it up a bit, maybe. But as it is, should I try? No, I don't know if I want to vomit on live TV. There's just nothing exciting about that. Nothing exciting. And while we continue on this potential quest, we are looking for any signs of fresh elephant activity. We're going to be going to Brett in the Mara, who has got wonderful cheetah.
So I'm checking all their favourite spots. Just lots and lots of general game. Thompson's gazelle, Grant's gazelle, zebra, wildebeest, topi. I'm hoping, no, they're not staring enough. So I'm checking all these little thickets up on top of the hills, and if they were successful in a kill yesterday, they're likely to be lying up somewhere around here or on the move, scent marking their favourite spots. I'll have a... Oh, what's going on there? Oh my goodness. Oh, it caught me. I thought it caught something. Let's just zoom in there. Oh, it was just a Montague's Hare sitting on top of a wildebeest skull. I thought, wow, that Hare has caught something big, or it's feeding off a dead Thompson's. But it was just a wildebeest skull. We've got some lovely Grant's gazelles up ahead here. And also another spot where I like to stop and pan across the valleys with my binoculars. But there's no snorting Tommies, no snorting Grants, no snorting zebra. Here we go. Lovely little group of grants here. Oh! Grants will be back. I've got guinea fowls alarm calling. Just on the other side of this thicket. They could be alarming at the boys. They could be alarming at a bird of prey. They could be alarming at a leopard or a lion. Let's go have a look. Hello, zebras. Let's see if we can find those guinea fowl. Sounded like they were in here somewhere. Let's just stop and listen again. Of course they've gone silent now. Damn, it sounded like they were just up here. And now this is one of the boys' favourite scent marking spots, these little gardenias off to the left here. What caused those guinea fowls to scream and shout? Ah, that's what caused them to scream and shout. Black-backed jackal. Black-backed jackal. You see him running. I'm going to pop out on the other side of that thicket shortly. Let me just go backwards. So there we go. Oh, you see it? There he is. What has excited that jackal is the next question. Let's go have a look. That jackal's definitely onto something. And now all of a sudden there's cars heading past me, but I think they came to see what we were looking at. Let's just have a quick look down here. There's a Topi looking down, Tommy looking across. Okay, while we figure out where this jackal's off to, let's go back to Ralph and the hyenas.
Thanks, Brent. And yes, the babysitter has now returned. She's just laid down, and you can see now the pups. Excuse me, I keep on saying that. It is cubs that keep on coming out just to poke their heads out and see if they're allowed to come out. It looks like now they might start to show themselves a little bit. As this one makes to go for a drink, I think. Must be her daughter, I would say. Muldoon, you want to know if the matriarch decides when to move den and where to move to? Yes, it generally would be the matriarch or the dominant female that would decide, and it would probably come down to how much the current den site is beginning to smell and to become a little bit unhygienic. At the moment, there is quite a strong smell here around this den site, so I wouldn't say that it's going to be too long before they actually move. They might move to a previous site that they've already used, which has had some time to just degrade a little bit of maybe the feces or the scat and the meat parts and bones and things that have been left in the area. So at the moment this is starting to get a little bit ripe here, and I wouldn't say that it's going to be too long before they move. And that would normally be down to the matriarch. She'd probably take one of her cubs or her only cub and move to the new site, and everybody would probably just follow from there. All the females taking their own cubs, moving them along. And it's as easy as that. They don't really have to worry about everybody else. It would probably be very well noticed that the matriarch has moved. So very easy in that sense. Carol, you want to know, are males born equal to females in hyena clans? Absolutely not, Carol. In the hyena world, it's all about the girls, all about the ladies. They are fully in charge, and the lowest ranking female is higher than the lowest ranking male. So the males are really pushed out. They are insignificant in the hyena world, and even when the cubs are born, they take on the mother's place in the hierarchy. And so even the cubs are above any adult male as well, if they are female. So, yeah, the males really get the short end of the stick. And speaking of short ends of the stick, it seems that this female drew the short straw, because she's obviously had to spend the evening here in the area looking after the youngsters, or just babysitting the den site as the rest go off, maybe hunting or scavenging, whichever one came first. But I very much think that something has happened during the night, or there is something on the go, because they've always been back at this time. Except when they got a hold of a few warthogs, and then they were back here a little bit later. So I do have a feeling that there maybe has been some food going on, or been available in the area, and that's what's keeping all the adults away. But at least we've managed to see the babysitter coming a little bit closer, and at least one of the cubs coming out for now. So we are going to continue waiting and being patient here next to the den site, because if we are here at the moment when the adults return, it's going to be an absolutely fascinating greeting ceremonies between, not only between the adults, but between the cubs and their parents, etc. So, and maybe they're going to bring back some meat, maybe not. But obviously we won't stay here the entire morning, but I think we do need to wait a little bit longer, just in case, because it would be sad to miss if we leave right now and then all the adults return just after we've left. But it's one of those things, you need to call it sooner or later. We need to move on and go and see what else we can find if nothing is really happening in this area. Now, Marley, you want to know, will females let cubs suckle that aren't their own? Generally not, Marley, but what I'm thinking with the hierarchy as it is, you probably wouldn't have a more dominant mom letting a subordinate cub, or a cub from a subordinate female, come to suckle from her. But potentially, I think in the only case where that will happen is if you've got a dominant cub that wants to suckle from a subordinate adult, and then the cub would probably be allowed to, because of its ranking. But generally they don't allow suckle. It's normally the mother that suckles her own cubs, and they can leave them for quite a few days, because hyenas have got extremely rich, or protein-rich milk, and that allows for them to suckle their young, and they can actually leave them for up to 2 to 3 days, and they can survive on that quite easily. So one of the richest milk of all the predators, carnivores, and even of mammals. So it allows the adults to go off long distances and long time away from them, away from the den. So folks, I believe we're just going to sit here and wait and be a little bit more patient, see what happens. But in the meantime, let's head you on back to South Africa, and if I'm not mistaken, to James. Let's see how he's doing.
He's doing well. He's feeling very frustrated, I must say. I'm unable to tell where any of these cats have gone. We've come back to the very first tracks of Thambo that we had early this morning, and he seems to have headed towards this waterhole here, but we have not managed to pick up anything further of any use, and so everyone is feeling a little bit distressed, aren't we, Liam? Yes, we are. There haven't even been any elephants to sort of keep us going on the way. Just the vastness of the sort of Kruger woodlands. Let's go along here, and then we can stop and shut up for a while. We'll listen to some birdies. Should always listen to the birdies. There's a starling up there, Liam. Do you see it? Aren't you excited? You will notice a stony silence from Liam when I asked if he was very excited about the birdie. Liam, do you think that is a greater blue-eared glossy starling or a Cape glossy starling?
The one with the orange eye.
They've both got orange eyes,
Yeah,
Liam.
then I'm not sure.
Well, does it have a blue ear?
Can't see.
No, it doesn't have a blue ear, Liam. It is a Cape glossy starling. How wonderful. Now, I'm most pleased to tell you that my microscope is working, if you can believe it. And so I think we'll just look at this rather pretty grass while we wait for Tumba to arrive. Looks like an implement that Dr. Dolittle would have had. Yes? Ooh, don't come out, because it'll take 7 days for it to come back again. Okay, let's see what we got here. Look, male parts. What a dreadful... Imagine somebody's just tuned in and they've heard me say, ah, look, male parts. That would be horrific. What I mean, of course, is male plant parts. That's what all that yellow is. Now, where are the female bits? Where does that pollen adhere to? Or to what does the pollen adhere when it moves between plants? I don't know. I think those sort of plasticky coloured things. Sorry about this. A little bit difficult. Anyway, it is very attractive. Unlike the voice in my ear, which keeps saying things like blurry safaris. Absolutely no consideration for the difficulties that we experience out here whatsoever. But me looking at the camera means cut back to me, Kirsten. I'm assuming she's done that anyway. Okay, good. So that's a grass. I'm not sure which grass it is. I thought I'd studied all of my grasses a few days ago, but this one is unusual. It looks a little bit like Schmidia paperophoides, but it isn't. I'm also told by the final control that Steve would know. Well, that's very good. Let's take it home for Steve. If he doesn't know, I'm not going to blame Steve. I'm going to blame the unpleasant voice in my ear. Okay, let us continue along our way. What have you spotted, Viam?
A blue bird.
A blue bird. A blue cordon bleu. Or waxbill, as they're called here in South Africa, where we don't speak French. It's gone. Spotted it again, Viam. Look! This is really a spectacular picture of a blue waxbill. The harpy in my ear tells me that we're not going to look at my bird anymore. We're going to go across to Steve's bird.
Of course, James, my bird is much cooler than your bird. I'm only joking. The waxbill is a beautiful little bird, and here we have one of my favourite birds in the African bushveld, the white-crested helmet shrike. I don't know if you get a good visual of him there. It's a small family group just foraging around in the branches there. They are cooperative breeders, and They sound just like, well, I tend to call them the Star Wars bird. And I'm going to play the call for you now, because it sounds like the lasers, you know, the guys with the white uniforms in Star Wars. Let's have a listen. Do you agree? They're very territorial, and here they'll come right here. They're right here above us now, calling back. Because they're territorial, I'm only going to play that call once. They get a bit upset, they come and they investigate, but because it's breeding season, I will leave them to it. But it was nice for you to get that visual of them. They are one of my favorite birds, and they are part of the shrike family, but they are helmet shrikes. They have a good relationship with each other as a family, but there they are. But actually the reason why we stop, folks, and this is one of my happiest moments in the bush, is when I find something like this. And I must admit, I did cheat a little bit, because I investigated this before we came live on air, purely because I found many of these in the past that aren't real. But what we have here is a mound of soil. I've basically replaced it as best as I thought I could. And what is quite obvious is that the crust has been broken over here, and on this side there's also crust been broken there. Now what has happened here, and this sort of loose earth put in a pile here is a very good indication. When you look at this, that is quite a hard piece of soil that was uplifted and was in this pile. And this is a very good indication of one of our very shy and unobserved animals. This is the toilet, ladies and gentlemen, of an aardvark. And I admit I did cheat, because I checked before to make sure, but this is kind of what you look for. There doesn't seem to be any digging for termites. There's no activity for termite digging on either side. It's just a bit of soil that is thrown up onto a pile of dung. And if I just scrape this away and you kind of look inside, we're going to find pellets of the aardvark, and there is one right there, and you can see it's full of sand on the outside, but it's actually normally black in color. And if I break it open, you can see the little carapaces and the body parts of termites. You getting that, Avi? Okay, so that is the aardvark dung, and there's a number of pellets just in here. See, there's another one over there. And they are very secretive, and these are one of the signs that we find out here of aardvarks. And what I'll do is I'll do again what I did before, cover it up. He's burying it for a reason. Exactly, I don't know why. I've not read the 101 of why aardvarks bury their dung. They do it for some purpose, and maybe it's to keep their identity hidden. But here we have that beautiful and elusive animal. I do have another book at home that I didn't bring with me today, but I'll have it in the vehicle this evening, and I can show you some photos of what these look like. And they are very interesting signs and tracks in the bush, and it is awesome to find activity like that. It's not that fresh, probably about a week or two old, but just the fact that they are here makes me very excited. I know my friend out there, a student I trained last year, her name is Kia, she is dying to see an aardvark. It is the one animal she is still dying for. Okay, let me just collect all my books. We have found two of those trees we wanted to show you, but they weren't very good examples, so we're still on the track of them. The elephants seem to be a bit further south of our position and on Lower Gowrie, but we're going to continue. We're going to go find the Mercedes-Benz tree, and I don't think anyone's guessed it yet. No one sent a comment through. What is the Mercedes-Benz tree? And while we continue, I believe Mr. Brent has got a spotted cat.
There we go, we've had some success. And fortunately, it doesn't look to be the 5 boys. I can't really see, but I think this is Miale's son. And then Miale is a little bit behind in the thickets. We can't see her from here. So I think it's Miale and son. Now, I can't see how hungry they are just yet. But there are 2 cheetah here. Already in the shade of the croton thickets. There are a lot of animals around. Nothing too close to them at the moment, but spread throughout the plains there's a plethora of game about. Remember, this is 100% live, coming to you from the Masai Mara in Kenya, as well as the Greater Kruger in South Africa. If you have any questions for us, hashtag Safari Live. would be the best way to get hold of us. Hello, Lily. Nice to have you back with us, Lily. And I'm very happy to bring you your favorite cat. And Lily says, Cheetah, how wonderful. So Lily's favorite cats are Cheetah. So this is the young male. I'm pretty sure it's Miali's young male. I haven't been able to get a clear facial view of the female yet, but once it is, we'll be able to see if it is Miali. She's got a very distinctive face. Giving himself a little lick. It could be multiple reasons. He's probably got very wet paws if he's been walking around this morning, so he could get some moisture off it. Rhea says, what is the biggest prey a single cheetah can kill? Probably in this part of the world, a sub-adult topi or hartebeest. If we look down in southern Africa, probably a sub-adult kudu. Or sub-adult wildebeest as well. But generally, a female cheetah with a youngster like this will stick to Thompson's gazelle, Grant's gazelle, and scrub hares. Although we have seen them take down sub-adult wildebeest, but there are not too many sub-adult wildebeest around at the moment. But if these remaining wildebeest that are in the Mara stay behind, then I think the cheetah will be focusing almost exclusively on baby wildebeest during that period. Now, is that looking a little bit red on his feet? No, it's not. I thought he might be a bit of blood. I thought maybe they had success this morning. Okay, I'm going to try reposition to see if we can get a better view of the female. While we do that, let's go across to James to see how his search for the other spotted cat is going.
It's going so poorly, I can't find anything. No. I can't even find a bird. Nothing. Just the sun is burning my head. I've got no hair anymore. I know you don't care. Doesn't matter. Let's keep going. Okay. We've come past Gulago Pan. Nothing further there. What I'm going to do now... The jigger was angling towards the right, so let's go this way. We'll go up Gallagher shortcut, which is what we're on now. And I'm going to give up looking actively for the leopard. Vincent, you say James is going crackers. Oh, Vincent, James went crackers some time ago. I think round about my 4th birthday, which was distressingly, oh, don't fly away. It was a brown snake eagle, everybody, I promise. I will tell you one small story as we look at another starling up there, Vim, in the nice light. In this saffron tree, next to the one in which the starling is sitting, I once found a mvula. Now, this was on my television debut. I think it was my debut. Yes, it was. It was in the morning. And I came down the road, much distressed, in a huge panic because we hadn't found anything. And there was mvula sitting in this tree. And it was very exciting. And I became totally overexcited during my TV performance. And I think if I went back to listen to it now, I would be sorely embarrassed by the tones of agitation in which I spoke. Anyway, that was over here. There are some squirrels shouting down here. I don't believe anything they say. Squirrels lie. Happy giggles, you're wondering about white berry bushes and if there are any that you can see. There are many. Normally, naturally, of course, as you ask for them, we won't find one, but I will find you one. White berry bush, I think, is of variable use as a food. The seeds are bitter and foul, but if you get one with decent sized berries on it, they can be quite tasty. They taste a little bit. They are everywhere. There must be a whiteberry bush around here somewhere. Flugia virosa. Here is one. It does not have any white berries on it, unfortunately. Oh yes, it does. Here's some white berries. Do you see it, Liam? Are you impressed by my ability to track and find a white berry bush? Aha. Now these ones are a bit small, and I think they won't taste great. Really fairly poor. Right, back in so that the harpy can talk to me. Now the harpy tells me that Stephen, despite the fact that he's on foot, has managed to find something much more impressive than I have managed today.
Yes, we do, James, but it's not always about the big things. Whiteberry bushes are fantastic, but what we have found is a giraffe. And I'm hoping Darby's able to get it on the camera there. Looked like I didn't even get to see if it was a male or female. It saw us and it ran away at a bit of a gallop, and it's now moved probably about 80 yards from where we are now, and is staring at us. I can just see a little bit of it, but it's relying on its camouflage and also the ability, its very good eyes. The fact that it is quite fast, it'll give itself that space. These herbivores are quite familiar with the two-legged man. We hunted them for a long time in a vehicle. They don't seem to respond the same way. But we're going to go a little bit further here. Maybe we're going to be able to see him a little bit better. But the key with giraffe, folks, is if you're walking them is to not walk directly at them and try to look at them, because the intention of a predator is eyes on. So as I'm looking at you now, we're going to kind of meander like that. See if we can get a bit closer to this magnificent creature.